Now we move to topic D, and in topic D, we're talking about diversity as a potential source of discrimination. Here we're looking at the differences in ethnic backgrounds. So a couple of points we need to consider: the different attitudes and values, even from a cultural perspective, culture determining the ability of members from other groups to perform within the organization. So it brings an issue of clash, it brings an issue of conflict, and we'll further down the line, we'll talk about or elaborate conflict being positive, or is conflict negative? Is it good for the organization? We also look at the minority group, the challenges they face within a bigger setting. Are they prejudiced? Are they discriminated? Or are they being stereotyped? Okay, so now let's quickly define a couple of things. Prejudice is defined as an adverse opinion or judgment formed beforehand or without full knowledge of complete examination of the facts, or preconceived ideas, or a bias. And we take this definition from Psycho Joshua and Co. 2005. So we need to give them credit for coming out with that. The next one, which is sometimes we interchange the word prejudice and discrimination, but let's look at discrimination in its entirety. So discrimination can include bias towards a person based on the group's identity. Okay, it could be a minority group size may determine the level of determination. In fact, a survey found that nearly half of black seekers indicated that a racial composition of the prospect in the workforce is a factor in their decision-making process. And so that concludes in terms of just the definition of the two things when we talk about prejudice and discrimination. Another thing we need to look at is quickly we need to look at the racial diversity in the workplace. Although racial discrimination is illegal, it does occur. So how do we combat racial stereotype in improving and to promote racial diversity in the workplace? What do companies need to do from a training perspective? How do they need to go for a particular trajectory from being negative to positive in terms of racial diversity? What is the implementation for its employees when it comes to these formulating policies? Are the policies robust enough to deal with the issue of racial diversity or the negative issues in and around racial diversity? So what's vital to train managers as they scope out the training material in and around the complexity of the work environment, particularly with dealing with laws that speak into discrimination. Okay, what we need to do, we need to also stamp out discrimination in the work environment, equality, diversity, and so we're going to bring in two components we need to quickly look at. Equality. What is the meaning of equality? It means creating a fair workplace environment so that every staff member can participate and has a scope to fulfill their potential. Diversity means recognizing and valuing differences in your working cultures and practices, particularly in the work environment.